So you have a yeast infection, or you think you do, or you have had one in the past and you just wanted to hear another person's experience about it. Well, you've come to the right place. Hello fellow Homo sapiens. In this video I wanted to talk to you guys about my experiences with yeast infections and my experience with Monistat 7 because the two go hand in hand. I will be specifically talking about vaginal yeast infections. I have had no experiences with the mouth ones and other kind of yeast infections, so if you're here for that, I'm so sorry. I know when I first got a yeast infection I had nobody to go to. I didn't know anybody who had had one before. I looked on the internet, I looked at pictures of different types of discharge, which I'm sure you probably did as well if you're watching this video. I had nobody to talk to about it, and I wanted to kind of share this video because I'm here to talk to you about it. You are not alone. Your discharge may be the same color as my sweater, but I assure you, you're going to be okay. A little disclaimer before we move on. I am not a doctor. I am not a medical professional. I am speaking solely based on my experiences and what the doctors have told me. Every person is going to have a different experience. We may have similar experiences, but you're gonna have this different reactions, treatments to your yeast infection. The severity of your yeast infection may even vary. So I will get into that as I tell you my story. So the first time I had a UTI was, UTI, that's for another video. So the first time I had a yeast infection, it was the night of 4th of July. I spent the whole day at the beach, Huntington Beach in Orange County, California. That detail matters. So I spent my whole day there, and then I went home. I kept my swimsuit on and I took it off later in the day in the evening. So I had it on. I went in and out of the ocean. I suppose you could say I let it dry because I was also sunbathing whenever I'd go out of the water. I got home that night and I was feeling kind of weird. I was starting to feel a little itchy in my vaginal area. I decided to finger myself because I wanted to figure out what was going on there. So I don't know, it was just out of instinct. When I pulled my finger out, I noticed some white, spotty discharge. It wasn't regular smooth discharge, if that makes sense. If you look up what a yeast infection is, there will most likely be photos of this. And then I didn't think much of it, but I told myself that I would try to go see a doctor the next day. Next day, I was lucky enough to get a same-day appointment with a doctor. It was starting to itch more and more as the day went on, so when I got to the doctor, I was telling her that I was freaking out. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I thought I was dying. I thought something was very wrong with my vagina. So I went in. She decided to do a vaginal culture on me. When she opened me up, or when she put the clamp in and then looked into my vagina, duh, she could see the discharge in the walls. And she said there wasn't a lot yet. She suspected it was yeast infection, but she wasn't too sure, although she was 90% sure. She wanted to get me cultured. She also prescribed me medication to treat the yeast infection. So that's my first experience. She prescribed me, I will insert the name here if I find it. I picked it up and took it right away. It was just one pill and it was supposed to treat the yeast infection. Within a couple of days, the itchiness went away, but she said it doesn't really completely go away till about a week. I was just really thankful that the symptoms went away. The next month, I go to Huntington Beach again. I go into the water again. And lo and behold, I get yeast infection again. About a day or two later, I go to another doctor and I was like, yo, can you check me out? I have a yeast infection. She checked me out. This doctor was so funny because she inserted the clamp in me, and then when she took it out, all the yeast or discharge was there, and she's like, yup, yeast infection. I was telling her how I was concerned if the cause of it were condoms or if it's Huntington Beach water, but I blame the beach water. My cooch just doesn't like that Huntington Beach water. She prescribed me the same thing I was prescribed the first time. It treated me exactly the same. I had no problems with it. And then the third time came a few months later. It was around December. I just started a new job and I didn't really want to tell my boss that I had to go. I didn't want to leave work early, and so I was trying to get an appointment for after 5 p.m., which a lot of doctors don't do. I remember waking up just so itchy and I knew something was wrong. It was probably the worst yeast infection I've had to date because it was just red. I looked okay. I tried to get an appointment and got one, but they canceled on me. And then as I was calling to try to make another one, I like started crying because I really wanted to see a doctor. So I went to urgent care and I was like, I think I have a yeast infection, can you check me out? They asked me about my symptoms. I told them it was itchy, there was some redness going on. I woke up in the middle of the night one day and it was just super itchy and dry. So she was like, that's a yeast infection, but she wasn't gonna culture me like the other two doctors did my first two yeast infections. And I was kind of concerned because I really wanted her to. So I insisted that she did, and she conducted the process. And I am so glad I insisted because the Monday after that weekend, they called me up saying, hey, you also have bacterial vaginosis. I thank myself for being insistent. Maybe deep down I knew something else might have been wrong. I just wanted to make sure, you know? Then they called me up. They're like, yo, pick this up at the pharmacy. I got treated for both a yeast infection and a bacterial vaginosis the third time. Fourth time around, I had no insurance. I just turned 26. I was no longer grandfathered into my dad's insurance plans. I decided to go to the store and use Monistat 7. This is a very popular yeast infection treatment available over the counter. I got mine at Walmart. You can get this, I know, at Target, any drugstore. I wouldn't be surprised if this is also available at 7-Eleven. And it comes with a cream that you have to insert into yourself and 7 disposable applicators because you have to use it for 7 days consecutively. And then it also comes with an instruction sheet, which came in very handy because I followed this like it was a religion. So I followed the instructions. It was super easy. You have to apply the cream in the evening because you kind of want to lay down afterwards. You don't want to be standing up after you apply it. I mean, if you have to go, you gotta go. Do it before you go to sleep. What you do first is poke a hole in your cream with like that, and then with your applicator kind of attach the open end of the applicator to the opening of the tube, secure it, and squeeze the tube until the end of the applicator resists and no longer extends. The first time I did it, I was standing up, which was cool, not bad. Then the next night, I did it laying down, which I much prefer. It was better for my back. It does feel a little weird putting things up there at first, unless you're used to tampons. I'm not. When you do it, relax to loosen up. On the first night, maybe even the second, it will burn and itch. You would think it's not working at first. The amount of itchiness and discomfort might feel a little more elevated. I really think it's a side effect of this. So you can also use the cream for outside if the outside parts are itchy. I didn't do that because, I don't know, I just didn't. I don't have this on video, but the next morning after the first night, the cream fell out when I peed, so it just fell in the toilet. And I suppose that's okay because it worked throughout the night. I'm not sure if all of it came out because I also went to the restroom at work and there was some more. That did happen every time I used the toilet though. Another thing is on the second day, when you kind of pick up the cream from the tube, I don't know, maybe there's like an air gap somewhere in the applicator because the next day I was like, I pushed it in and there was like this poof of air and yeah, it felt very weird, but it wasn't that bad. I guess it's like if there was something blowing air in you. For this treatment, I noticed that the yeast infection started going away after the second night, after the second application. I had less itchiness, less dryness. I didn't finger myself though whenever I used this. I wouldn't suggest that. I think I also read somewhere where you're not supposed to finger yourself if you have a yeast infection to check because it might irritate it even more. I just tried to avoid anything that could possibly harm my cooch even more. That thing is my baby, and I will do everything I can to protect it. All in all, I highly recommend Monistat 7 only if you are 100% sure you have a yeast infection, and you can only know that if you've had it before. If you've not had it before, I highly suggest going to a doctor and getting yourself checked out, because like I said, you can have a yeast infection, but I guess sometimes you can also have a bacterial vaginosis at the same time. So if it's your first time, please go to the doctor. If it's not your first time and you have really good insurance, and if you're still grandfathered into your parents' insurance, I highly suggest you also check out a doctor, especially if your copay is very low, and insist that you want to have vaginal culture done. You might have something else. They don't just test for yeast infection and BV, they also test for gonorrhea and chlamydia. So you might have one of those and you wouldn't even know unless you get cultured. So yeah, that is it for this video. And if you're watching this and you have a yeast infection, I hope you feel much better soon. I remember telling this dude I was seeing at the time that I felt bad about it, because anything that happens to me in any area of my body makes me feel bad about myself, because my body is kind of like my temple and I have to like protect it at all costs. Hopefully you guys found this video somewhat helpful. If you have any other tips you'd like to share to people that have yeast infections, let me know in the comments below. If you have a really wild yeast infection stories, I would really love to know those as well. And I will see you in another video soon. Alright then, bye!